our local Democratic clubs, the Auburn Area Democrats, Lincoln Democrats, the Sun City Roseville Democrats, Placer Women Democrats, and the Placer Action Network. We also have our indivisible partners, Indivisible Auburn, Indivisible Roseville, Indivisible Nevada County, and Strong Indivisible Seniors. I would also like to thank our volunteers who made today possible. And a big thank you to Ruth Cox from Lincoln and Barbara Smith from Auburn, who helped organize all this. So right now, we're going to bring up some of our sponsored clubs to introduce themselves real quick. I would like to acknowledge that Heidi Hall, the chair of the Nevada County Board of Supervisors and candidate for the 3rd Congressional District, is here today. Where you at, Heidi? With that, we'll bring up some of our co-sponsors to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Neva Parker. Some of you may know me as the candidate for Assembly District 5 last election, and I'll be doing it again this election. But I am also Vice President of the Auburn Area Democrats, which is thank you. So to give you a little idea about Auburn Area Democrats, we are basically kind of a service organization, and a little interesting thing about our club is this time last year, we had about 130 members. We have grown since January to 240. That's where people are now. They want to get involved and they want something to do, and that's what our club does. We have our coffee and conversation on Friday. We also, when candidates are endorsed by the Democratic Party, so should Heidi Hall get endorsed by the Democratic Party, we are there to support her in every way that we can. So, Auburn Area Democrats, if you're looking for something to do. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Ryder from the Placer Women Democrats. And part of our mission is to inform the to inform the public of the local issues and the federal issues and the state issues that matter to us. We also elect progressive women candidates, and we support them in their campaigns. Some of our activities include banners on the overpass. You may have seen us over the freeways with our big banners. We're making some new banners because there's always new issues, right? We're partnering with the Women's March for the June 14th Action Day. We have many social events, different fundraisers, and we campaign hard for our candidates. We do door knocking and postcards and letter writing and so forth. Last weekend, we had our annual luncheon, and we were very grateful to have the governor candidate, Betty Yee, spoke at our luncheon. And of course, our local favorite, Heidi Hall. She spoke at our luncheon last weekend. We appreciate having her. And Neva Parker, she was also one of our great speakers. We had a couple of Gen Z girls talk about what's important to the current generation, what are the issues that they're interested in, and how can we get the young folks to be involved in democracy. So if you would like to join Placer Women Democrats, we have social events every month. We have all kinds of advocacy and outreach rallies and all that sort of thing. So thank you very much. Hope to see you.
We're a loosely organized group here. So we are representing the indivisible groups that are in our area. Indivisible is not member of the Democratic Party or the Central Committee or any of the organized Democrats. They are a nationwide group, however, started in 2017, right after Trump was elected the first time, was started, we thought it would be over after that. It was started by two Washington staffers that really knew the ins and outs of things, a married couple, and they said, well, let's just write this little guide, let people know what they might be able to do, because everybody was so sad and mad and frustrated. And it took off like crazy. So there's now 2,000 indivisible groups in the country. We thought after Biden was elected that Trump would go away. He didn't, and so we kind of had to stay active during that time. We're very, the indivisible groups in general, were very active in getting the House flipped in 2018, so that was a big accomplishment. So we are, since I said we're not a Democratic group, we don't participate in selecting candidates. We also look at the broader big picture. So there are swing states, like there are 4 different elections that are coming up in 2025. You don't have to wait till 2026 to get involved with elections. And those are also including governors in some very important states. And if you've been watching the news, which I'm sure you all have, you know what an impact the statewide administration has in terms of who gets to vote, how they get to vote. And so we participate with some other groups to write letters. They're form letters. We just fill in why is it important to vote. And we send those off to those states, hoping to make a difference that will impact the big picture. Not that we work locally, but we also work with voter registration throughout the country. In 2018, when we sent out letters, it was called the Big Send. Our group, Indivisible Auburn, and the Auburn Democrats sent out 17,000 letters in that time to try to influence those elections. So we all do something similar. We do marches. We had something recently that was the Vigil for the Disappeared. We all dressed in white like those ladies in Argentina did when the 30,000 people were disappeared. And so it was kind of an homage to them. So we do things, we have the big groups, we have smaller focused areas. So my group, Indivisible Auburn, started in 2017, right after the election. I've got 3 other people here. One of the groups is only a month old. Another one is just a few months old, and they are growing like gangbusters and are really doing fantastic work. So I'm just going to pass this on to them. All of us have a table up there. If you are in our area and want to sign up, you can get on our newsletter. I don't have weekly or monthly meetings. We just kind of get together when we have an activity that we need to do. So the next big one is Donald Trump's birthday, when he wants to have the big parade, and it's also Flag Day, and we want to make sure that we take back the flag, and Indivisible nationwide. Indivisible nationwide is sponsoring No King's Day. And so we are all putting together events, and we solicit everybody that wants to participate. So keep your eyes open for those kinds of things. So I'm going to pass this along.
All right. My name is Rochelle Goodness, and I have the honor of leading Strong Indivisible Seniors. We are the group that's just a little over a month old. We are located in a 55-plus community. So you can imagine there's a lot of interest because we feel we're concerned about our rights. We've done a lot just in that short month. We've protested, we've sent emails, we use the 5 Calls app, and we are building a fantastic team in Roseville. It's been an honor to be here today, and I'll turn it over to the next person.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jen Leslie. I'm the events coordinator with Indivisible Roseville. We started just 4 months ago in February of 2025. Dave Wyatt decided that there wasn't an indivisible group that was in Roseville, so he started one up, and then a bunch of us jumped on the bandwagon into the steering committee, and we've been going full steam ever since. We've been having these big events. I don't know, maybe some of you, I know some of you have been out to the Galleria protests that we've been having. We had one out there last week. We had probably 1,000 people out there, and just really a fun, big, motivating event for all of us to let off a little bit of steam and get our signs up there and just kind of be with like-minded people. So we're planning another one on No King's Day. We're going to be out at the Galleria again on June the 14th from 10 a.m. until noon. So you're all invited to come on out, bring your signs, and bring your enthusiasm, and let's show Trump, and let's show these Republicans what we're all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi there. Number one, I just want to say thank you to all of you. It is Saturday. I know it's the spring. You have things to do, but look at you. You are here to get educated, to be inspired, and to mobilize for resistance and change. That's why. Thank you. My name is Kathy Dotson. I'm one of the leaders of Indivisible Nevada County. We've been around since the first term, although we kind of piddled out once Biden got in, and here we are, and we're stronger than ever. Nevada County has an amazing, amazing community. In fact, the next congressperson is from Nevada County, Heidi Hall, Board of Supervisors. But we have done a huge amount in just a short time since January 20th. And if you might know, because if you watch Rachel Maddow, who loves to just highlight all of the resistance movements and gatherings across the United States, we've been on Rachel Maddow 3 times. So we've kind of gotten the ball rolling in terms of letting Kevin Kiley know that we care and that we care about how he's voting. He is not here. We don't know why, but he is not here, and he did not show up for our town hall either. You can make your decision on why that is, but it doesn't matter because you guys are here. There is no superhero. There's even no congressperson that is going to save us. It is us. And so whatever you can do is the important thing. And no matter if that's going out to a protest, June 14th is the next big one, or writing letters, doing the calls, 5calls.org. We also have these postcards to Kevin Kiley. We've given out over 2,000. We still have a few left, and we're about to do a new printing. You let him know. Drop it in the mail. Bring it to his office in Rocklin and let him know you are his constituents. Let him know how you feel. So anyway, again, thank you for coming. Get involved no matter what level you can do. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Annie Bowler, and I am I'm one of the leaders of Public Schools Strong, Placer County Plus. Raise your hand if you have kids, grandkids, neighbor kids that are in local schools. Friends, kids. Okay, lots of us do. Okay. We all care about schools. They're our future, children are, right? So our organization is working to make sure our schools meet the needs of every kid in our county. We're focused on Placer County alone, schools alone. And that doesn't mean we don't care about some of these other things, of course we do. But our focus is on the individual district and make sure that every district is serving each one of our kids in the best ways possible. So just to let you know, what we want to do is we monitor what's going on with school boards, making sure they're following the state regulations, that kind of thing, and then coming and speaking with people if they're not. We support, we champion an inclusive type of education where every kid gets a good education, no matter if special needs or if they're the brightest kids, and no matter what, we want to make sure they do that. We're trying to build a community around schools. So we volunteers. We wear shirts like this. We get training from Public Schools Strong, which is a nationwide organization, and we're the Placer County branch. And it's just to make sure that we're helping schools to be the best that they can be. And so you can join us. We've got a table up there. And so it's pretty simple, but we meet, it's kind of by school district. So there's 4 high school districts in Placer County. So it's by each of those districts. But we all work together kind of, but there's cohorts. We call them cohorts from each one. And we've got a bunch of cohort leaders that are here in our meeting. Now you can raise your hand. I know a couple of them are here. So I appreciate those people. But anyway, it's a wonderful organization, and if you love kids, it's a place to make sure that schools stay steady for your children, your grandchildren, or anybody else's children in our county. So thank you.
My name is Jacob Boyce. I'm here from the Placer Action Network. I'm currently the president of the club. I was asked to give a 45-minute barn burner speech here about 10 minutes ago. So stick with me here. We have a little bit of time. We'll be moving on around 3:15 to the next speaker. No, so I'm a stand-up. No, I'm not a stand-up comedian. Okay. The Placer Action Network is a Democratic chartered club. Democratic chartered club, is that better? All right. We are based in all of Placer County, but we really serve largely Roseville, R-Rocklin, Lincoln, because that's where our population is. But we do have members up in Auburn as well, and some other scattered areas around Placer County. And we focus on community service and helping our local candidates. We do a lot of canvassing, a lot of fundraising, those kinds of things for school board, city councils, all of those more localized offices that so many of us forget about when we're focused on the congressional candidate, such as Kiley and our own Heidi Hall. But we need to remember that those offices are also very important, and they touch our lives a lot more than some of the congressional offices do. So don't give up on those. Make sure that you are helping out on those local elections as well. One last thing that I wanted to mention is I personally had started up a monthly meetup called Common Grounds, held once a month on the 4th Sunday of the month, right now at Moxa Barrel House. And the whole idea is just to get together with folks, network, meet other like-minded folks, and have some chats, and be able to improve the community that we have right here in Placer, right here in Roseville. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. How many people are here from Lincoln? Yeah! Look at that. I'm Ruth Cox. I'm the president of the Lincoln Democratic Club. We're about 435 strong and growing. Biggest Democratic club in Placer County. Thank you for being here. This is so exciting. We're really looking forward to hearing from our congressional representatives, so I'm not going to take up too much time. I just want to say that we did invite Kevin Kiley to come here today. I called 3 times to his office. I sent an email. I got absolutely 0 response except a form letter that didn't even acknowledge the invitation. That's what he thinks of us, okay? So what we need to do is to tell him what we think of him. Okay? So the Lincoln Democratic Club is organizing precinct-level coffee and conversation events, every precinct in Lincoln, and we are going to be organized, and we are going to beat Kevin Kiley in November 2026. Let's make it happen. I'm going to turn this over to Nick for the rest of the program. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ruth. All right, just a reminder, please take a look at your programs. We have a few QR codes for you to scan. We have a democracy workshop coming up in June. And then also, there was a little flyer within it. We would love for you to take our survey. Also, if you want to see more events like this, If you would like to see more events like this, please consider donating. We have a QR code at the bottom on the back of our flyer. You could also come to our website. Now, let's get on to the main part of this event. I'm sure that a lot of you have questions. You're seeking answers about what you're seeing in Washington and in our federal government. That is the purpose of this town hall today, so that we can come together as a community and give you the opportunity to ask questions face to face with your elected leaders. Today, we are fortunate to have not one, but two California congressmen joining us, Representatives Sam Liccardo and Jared Huffman. Now, if you're wondering, where is our representative from Congressional District 3, despite emails and phone calls and months of people visiting his office, we never heard back from Kiley, and he has never committed to an in-person town hall. So we took it upon ourselves to organize this town hall because you deserve a town hall just like every other district. So I'd like to hand it over to Representative Liccardo from California's 16th Congressional District, representing San Jose and Silicon Valley, our nation's tech engine. And Representative Jared Huffman of California's 2nd Congressional District, representing the beautiful north coast of California.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Jared and I are going to tag team here, but I just wanted to open up first by thanking all of you for taking time out of your busy days to be here. You know, Nick's right. You all do deserve a town hall. And we're doing these, you know, Jared and I are doing these throughout our district, and we got a lot of folks coming out, hundreds of people in each one of them, because we have a lot of folks with real fear, real concern, real anger about what's going on in our country. And you do too, and you deserve to hear from elected officials in Washington. So we look forward to starting this conversation. But I really want to thank the folks who helped put this all together, starting with Ruth Cox, who you just heard from, and the good folks at Lincoln Democratic Club. I actually had a chance to get to know Ruth in her prior life back down in the Bay Area, and I know how wonderful she is. Thanks also to Barbara Smith and the good folks at Placer County Democratic Central Committee. Thank you, Barbara. Thanks to Nick, who just introduced me, and thank you, by the way, for your service in our military and our armed forces. Thank you, Nick. And thanks also to Karen Alvord, our vice mayor here, and thanks to the good people of Roseville. We're thrilled to be here. Not everyone is, not the speaker folks, but am I okay standing back here? Oh, that's you? Okay. All right, we won't do that again. Hey, to all the moms, happy Mother's Day. Yeah. And Jared, should I move forward? Let me try. I like that. There you go. Okay, here we go. You know, when you're from Silicon Valley and tech doesn't work for you, it's rough. But Jared and I happen to hail from two of the three most beautiful districts in all of the United States. I have got a bit of a coastline myself along San Mateo County. Jared is not just representing a great district and a beautiful district, he's also protecting beauty throughout our country as the ranking member of Natural Resources. Jared, please take it away.
Well, are you folks ready for a town hall? I think you deserve one. And I'm your neighbor to the west and to the north. My district starts at the Oregon border, goes all the way down to the Golden Gate Bridge. And so I have a huge district with a lot of amazing rural communities, 6 different counties. And what I have found in the 13 years that I've been on this job is that the only way I can serve a district that big and that diverse and that includes that many rural and sometimes remote communities is to show up in every corner of my district and to meet with people and hear from them and answer their questions and have lots of town halls. So there is no part of my district, including the communities that vote for Donald Trump, that has not seen me multiple times for in-person town hall meetings. I think it's very, very important. And yes, I'll also mix in some telephone town halls. Those are additive, but it's not the same. It's not the same because you can filter those, you can control those, you can curate them in ways that are less than the give and take of the wonderful give and take of a direct in-person town hall. So I've been doing them just this year all over my district, over a dozen of them. We're even doing them in high schools and middle schools, and the wonderful thing that's happening is people are showing up to engage in their democracy. And we don't always agree with each other on everything politically. They don't always agree with me, but we have a great respectful civic dialogue, and I think in this moment in America, that is more important than ever. So what I tell folks in my town halls is that I'm going to try mainly to answer 2 questions that I would want to know the answer to if I were in the audience talking to my member in Congress in this moment. The first one is, does my representative understand what this moment is all about? What's going on? What the hell is going on? And number 2, what are they doing about it? And I will just tell you that what I tell my constituents is that I've never been more worried about our country. I believe we have a president who is trying to bully his way into a dictatorship. And he's trying to use fear and disinformation and classic authoritarian tactics to divide us, to distract us. And he's trying to roll back decades of social and political and environmental progress. So that's what this moment is in my eyes. And you know, our constitutional republic was built with really thoughtful checks and balances to prevent abuses of presidential power. And there's really 3 of them. Starts with the United States Congress. Article 1, right up front in the Constitution, all the legislative power. Power to actually impeach and remove officials in other branches of government. The power to levy taxes, collect revenues, the power to expend federal funds, the power to declare war, power, exclusive power, plenary power over trade and commerce. You wouldn't know that looking around today, would you, Sam? So there's all these vast Article 1 powers. That is the most important check on the abuse of presidential power. Then you also have the courts, Article 3, playing an important role in preventing corruption and abuses of power. And then you've got the big one, public opinion, which Abraham Lincoln told us is the most powerful thing of all. Now, when you think about the 3-legged stool of containing presidential power, keeping us from having a dictatorship, 2 of those legs are working pretty well. The courts are issuing dozens and dozens of orders holding this president in check as he breaks out and tries to bully his way to dictatorship. The public is waking up all over this country and showing up and speaking up. And I'm very encouraged by all of that. But what is so absent right now, and the reason this 3-legged stool is very shaky right now is because this Congress doesn't understand that it's a Congress. This MAGA majority thinks they work for Donald Trump, and they refuse to push back on him in any way as he ignores acts of Congress, as he empowers his biggest campaign donor, the wealthiest man in the world, to ransack through federal agencies, to cut programs that Congress has specifically authorized, all of this, and to do this economic chaos with his trade wars and tariffs that are going to be a tax on American families, thousands of dollars that we're going to start to feel very, very soon, all of us. The economic chaos, what's going on with our 401ks and pensions. In the face of all of this, this Congress won't do anything. They won't speak up. We spent the past week passing legislation to rename the Gulf of Mexico. So we have got to get Congress back in the game. We've got to bring civic dialogue and democracy to every American in every district all over the place. And those are the reasons that I'm here, to be with all of you. I'm really honored. And I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you all for coming. I will just make 2 additional points. I think he said it so well. First, although we have managed to rename the Gulf of Mexico, I'm still going to call it Gulf of Mexico. One thing we haven't done in my entire tenure here, and I'm the rookie here, by the way. I just got here, 18 weeks ago, and I've been waiting because I kept telling voters in my district, hey, we're going to do everything we can to address the cost of living in your community, right? The cost of groceries, the cost of rent, the cost of insurance and utilities and everything, and we have not yet voted on a single bill to actually reduce the cost of living for anyone in this country. So that's number one I'd point out. Number 2 is, in addition to being a rookie on the Congress, I looked at Jared often for advice, I'm also a recovering lawyer. Now, I'm a former criminal prosecutor, and I used to prosecute at the federal level and locally as well. And just in the last 24 hours, I saw a fellow federal prosecutor announce that she was intending to bring, or likely to bring, indictments for charges against 3 members of Congress, 3 of our colleagues. And you may have already read, they just arrested a mayor for being on an ICE installation. Apparently, they didn't like it, even though federal law gives members of Congress the authority to walk uninvited into ICE installations for purposes of our oversight. And the excuse is that somehow or another, these members of Congress, and I've seen the video, and I can't see what's going on in the video, but I'm pretty sure what they're claiming is that these colleagues of ours were assaulting ICE officers. Now, keep in mind, one of them is an 80-year-old woman assaulting armed ICE officers. So I can tell you, as a federal prosecutor, I probably wouldn't take that case. And I don't think this federal prosecutor should either. So anyway, we look forward to your questions and your comments and your observations. So how are we doing this? We're bringing folks on.
I think we have some remote microphones.
Yeah, we do. Okay, great.
And so our staffers are going to make their way around and get to you. One thing that we need to request, and this may feel a little weird, but let the staffers hold on to the microphones. You can probably imagine why. If you lose that microphone, you don't know where this thing goes. So, yeah.
Okay, we got one right here.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. As a parent, I am extremely fearful for my son to grow up in a country where the Health and Human Services person doesn't even believe in germ theory. And so, given that a lot of the next, I'm thinking the next 10, 20 years, right? What can be done to mitigate the harms, and especially the irreversible or irreparable harms that can be done by dismantling all of these institutions, Health and Human Services, national parks, all of these precious, precious resources that I want to still be able to give to my son?
I can't tell you, I've yet considered in great depth what the blueprint is going to be to rebuild, because I think we all know arsonists can move a lot faster than home builders can, right? And what we've seen is a wholesale arson of an awful lot, the infrastructure that's holding this country up. I was having this very same conversation with a bunch of folks in the biotech community who are upset about the fact, well, I don't need to tell you. They're frustrated that this isn't exactly an administration focused on science either. What I do know is the most important part of this infrastructure are the human beings, the talent that we're losing. And I think our focus is going to be when we retake Congress in 2026, and we're going to have to. Our focus has got to be doing everything we can to encouraging those bright, particularly the younger folks who've been pushed out of this government and want to serve our country in various ways, doing everything we can to lift them up, bring them in, support coming back into the government, and providing some basic protections that civil service is supposed to be providing against the political wind shifting. Look, there's plenty of reasons to fire somebody who's not doing a good job, but that reason should never be what the party affiliation is of the person in the Oval Office. And I think we know what's really going on here. So we've got to be very laser focused on working with our workforce, both as they're leaving, fortunately, because we know thousands are leaving, to encourage them to consider coming back. And then obviously, we've got to invest an awful lot of resources into training the next generation. It's going to take us a generation to rebuild.
Yeah, it's a very important question. I think you're alluding primarily to the fact that RFK Jr. Is the top official at the Health and Human Services Agency. I can't believe I'm saying those words, right? Because whether it's autism or fluoride or measles or any of the vaccines that have saved so many lives in this country, or deconstructing the NIH, or taking the United States out of the global public health community, preventing us from getting ahead of whatever mutation takes this avian flu into a dark place that could wipe out lots of human lives. I mean, it is a scary world out there. And the United States has been a leader because we believe in science. And we believe in looking at the future and protecting people. And this guy just has no idea what he's doing. But he got there. How did he get there? Because Congress, I'm going to go back to Article 1 a lot in this conversation, by the way. One of those awesome powers of the Congress in Article 1 is advice and consent for presidential nominees to positions like this. And there is no prior time in American history where so many obviously disqualified people could have made it through that advice and consent process. But today, it's different. This Congress, this majority is different. They think they work for Donald Trump, and so they say, yes, sir, you can have all of these unqualified people. And this is the consequence of putting deeply unqualified people in positions of great power. So we're going to need to challenge reckless actions that he takes in the courts. We're going to need real scientists and real experts to speak up so that Americans hear from more than just social media influencers and people that are hawking supplements on the internet. And we're going to need to take back the Congress so that we can have a real check and balance on this kind of leadership.
You know, I know with the Supreme Court and the Citizens United, that's kind of, in my opinion, seems to have allowed the government to be sold out or purchased by the moneyed few. And I'm just wondering, short of a constitutional amendment, what will it take, what can Congress do if we take it back in 2026 to actually get the money out of politics and get things back down on earth?
Yeah, thank you. Well, you're absolutely right that all of the big money, all of the dark money that has infected our political system is a huge part of the problem. It's why even when really dumb and destructive bills come before us and the worst of Donald Trump's extreme ideas are advanced, this Republican Congress is silent because they're afraid that Elon Musk and the other billionaires, the other oligarchs that have become so powerful under Donald Trump will come in and take them out and in their careers. So this money problem is huge, and you're exactly right. Citizens United kind of set a lot of it in motion, but even after Citizens United, there's still space for Congress to do very meaningful campaign finance reform. And in 2 Congresses ago, we were able to pass out of the House of Representatives a bill called the For the People Act that included a bunch of reforms that could have helped quite a bit. We got to protect voting rights. We got to get ahead of this scourge of voter suppression and other things where they will try to prevent us from having a free and fair election in the 2026 midterms. But when we take back the Congress and when the politics align for us, even after Citizens United, there's a lot of space for us to legislate meaningful ways to get ahead of this dark money problem and kind of put some sideboards in place.
Yeah, I think in addition, and I agree with everything Jared just said, I also think just specifically on the issue of dark money, where Congress should be focused on is disclosures. We know the Supreme Court has done to us in terms of handicapping our ability to ban it, limit it. But if we can force disclosures, for example, within 24 hours, anytime there is a contribution to one of these super PACs or one of the super PACs are spending money, then at least the media can get the information out. And we can know where the money's coming from. That's really important in a lot of districts like this where people are trying to understand, hey, where is all this money coming from? Because I know, my next door neighbor may not have the millions of dollars that we're seeing being spent in this race. Second thing I'd just say is, I don't think we should discount this constitutional amendment. We know a constitutional amendment is a long, long road, right? It's hard. It's only been done 27 times. It's not easy. But if you look at the polling, this is one of the very few issues that unites Republicans and Democrats. More than 70% of both actually support the basic notion that we've got to get money out of politics and that we shouldn't be protecting campaign contributions and spending in the same way we protect other First Amendment speech, right? And so a very simple amendment that just says, look, campaign spending and fundraising is not protected speech under the First Amendment. It can reasonably regulate it. Now, that'll do fine, we know, among Americans in a poll. How do we get everybody on board, obviously, in all the state legislatures and so forth? So I've actually decided to undertake this effort. I reached out to about a half dozen Republicans so far to have the conversation. To say, hey, look, here's the polls. Your residents support this, right? Your residents support this. Something we could do together. So far, I've not yet found a courageous friend. But I'm going to keep trying because I think we got to have these conversations. And look, hopefully, as Trump's numbers continue to plummet, we'll see perhaps more courage, stronger spines grow on the other side, and hopefully create momentum. We've got to start.
Okay, over here.
Hello, I'm new to this area right here. Actually, I'm from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin can't be bought at all, so I just moved to the Folsom area. And first of all, I'm glad to see you here. I'm glad to see the Democratic Party working with Indivisible, because there can be tensions back and forth at times. Indivisible is amazing at mobilizing protest,
right.
But they can't do a critical item which will determine whether or not we win the elections that you gentlemen can do. What you can do is come up with policy. What we're doing is reaction. We're reacting to what Trump is doing. That's not leadership. Leadership is coming up with a policy, coming up with an immigration policy, coming up with an economic policy, and I don't care what it is, but something specific that we all can get behind. My question is, what can you do to facilitate that?
So thank you. I'll just jump in and welcome to California, by the way. See, everybody's not leaving California. Look, you're exactly right. We cannot just spend all our time talking about what we're against. We got to talk about what we're for. Now, and I promise you, Sam and I are both co-sponsoring really great bills to lay out that vision. You know, Democrats supported an immigration and border security fix at the end of the last Congress. It was bipartisan. It was big. It was maybe not as comprehensive as I would like, but it wasn't bad. It would have been the best thing we've done in a long, long time. And I've supported other bipartisan immigration policy fixes. The problem is our Republican friends and Donald Trump decided they'd rather have the problem than the solution. So we will keep trying to do that. Here's where we need to work together, because we can come up with all of the great bills in the world, and I think we have done a lot of that already. We can talk about it using the media platforms and communication tools that we have, but half the country is never going to hear what we say. Because of the way our sources of news and information have been splintered, and so much of it is coming through social media platforms that have a thumb on the scale. in the form of algorithms that reward conflict and hate and disinformation and kind of yawn at like facts and serious policy conversations. So we are challenged, and we're going to have to make up for that. All of us, really, by being a little bit louder and more active and more creative, I think, in all the messaging we do about the things we're for and also the stuff we're against.
Yeah, if I could just add, you know, when you describe what leadership is, you said that's our job. And hey, I'm seeing a lot of leadership right now. I just read a list of folks who worked hard to bring us together, right? That's leadership. Leadership's happening in our communities every single day. And as you might have guessed, folks out there who may not agree with me ideologically or on the other side of the aisle don't trust members of Congress nearly as much as they might trust you if you're a friend or a family member. And I know none of us want to get in those debates over Thanksgiving dinner, but the truth of the matter is we all hold much more power and leadership than we might think at first blush. The nonprofit organizations that are outside that have been doing all they can to lift our communities up and provide leadership, thank you for supporting them, because we know what's happening right now with the cuts, the health and human services, education, everything else. We're going to need leadership there and your support for their leadership. The leadership of organizations like Indivisible, leadership of folks who are hustling every day to try to help us win back in 26, the House of Representatives, and ultimately Congress. There's a lot of ways to express and exert leadership. So please don't believe it's just us, but obviously we've got to do our job too. And I'm committed to doing it. Silicon Valley, where I come from, my job as I see it is to realign Silicon Valley more strongly behind my party, which used to be the party of innovation. And that means Democrats probably need to be thinking more about how we can lead on things like high-skill immigration, which is really, really important, and supporting basic investment in science and research and independence of our universities and all those things that are important in innovation, so we can clearly distinguish ourselves from an administration that is undermining innovation like no presidential administration ever has. So I think that's going to be my contribution to how we can drive economic policy, because I know a lot of you folks are refugees from the Bay Area. I've got friends in Roseville who tell me this all the time. And I know we're clogging up your roads, I'm sorry, but many folks I know here know how critical innovation is to driving our economy, and I think that's where we need to be focused.
Can I jump in on one more thought? Because I think I talked a lot about the communication challenge of articulating our vision. There's also some very specific examples of what my Democratic colleagues and I are for right now in this moment, and what Donald Trump is against, and why that's a big, big deal. Right here in this community, my understanding is that you've got an historic opportunity to do a semiconductor project that will benefit from almost $250,000 of federal incentives from the CHIPS and Science Act, which was a bipartisan piece of legislation a few years ago that Donald Trump now says he wants to get rid of totally. And it's a great example, Sam talked about innovation, of recapturing American leadership in science and technology and innovation. And we put real dollars and real policy on the table. That was a bipartisan law that President Biden signed. It's bringing projects like that Bosch semiconductor plant to communities like yours and mine and many all over this country. Donald Trump is trying to get rid of it, and the Republican Congress is silent. So if you had a town hall with your representatives, that would be a great example of something that you should put to them as specifically as possible. Are you for defending the CHIPS and Science Act and the kind of historic transformative investments that it's bringing and the jobs and leadership it's bringing back to our country? Or are you for Donald Trump's policy of gutting it? And they better hurry up and tell us where they stand, because this president doesn't think he needs to wait for Congress. He thinks he can just ignore laws that Congress has passed, stop spending money that Congress has appropriated. And so that project, if we don't have some members of Congress join my Democratic colleagues and me to defend that law, projects like that could be in real trouble. So that's one example. I'll give you one other quick one. Sorry. I know you care about fires. We all do. My district has been ravaged by catastrophic fires. We put historic investments on the table to enable a very proactive approach to making communities safer from wildfires. And what we have seen in the last 100 days or so is a slashing of the agencies that we need to carry out those projects, to do the prescribed burns, to do the thinning and clearing and shaded fuel breaks that will make yours and mine and other communities safer, to prevent us from hiring the federal firefighters that we need going into fire season, and just silence from our Republican colleagues on that. So I am genuinely worried that we're heading into fire season far less prepared and far more vulnerable than we need to be. That's a question that I'd be asking every California Republican representative in Congress right now. Will you push back on what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing to make us less safe from wildfires?
Over here. Hi, my name is Dennis from Auburn. Thank you very much for joining us today. Since the guardrails beautifully designed by folks 250 years ago don't work now, and that the cowards, and I wouldn't call them my friends in Congress, the cowards on the other side of the aisle seem to be willing to ignore law. What do you say, and what do they say back to you when you talk to them? What is their excuse to simply cower in the corner?
So since I'm a rookie, I like to believe I come at this with the ignorance of the novice, and so nobody will feel too intimidated when I approach them. So I actually talk to Republicans all the time. In the gym at 9 o'clock at night, that's when you find a lot of Republicans. They work out a lot more than Democrats for some reason. Anyway, except Jared, he's in better shape than anyone. Anyway, you know, in the elevators, I have a lot of these conversations, particularly with the first-term members, because they're not quite as influenced, I think, by those folks who went through January 6th, right? And it's fascinating what I hear. I hear some saying, we're really concerned, we're really frustrated too. We don't agree with X, we don't agree with Y, particularly when it comes down to giving up congressional power. And then I've heard one more senior member tell me, well, I think the courts are going to fix this. Now, keep in mind, we've had 135 injunctions so far from federal courts, appointed by both Republican and Democratic presidents, all 135. In fact, every single one of the last 6 presidents has appointed a federal judge who has struck down one of Trump's laws, or one of Trump's actions, including Donald Trump, by the way, several Donald Trump appointees. So yes, the courts are doing a lot of heavy lifting right now, but I think we both know that ain't going to be all we need to do. So there's some folks who are happy to hide for a while. Some who are simply saying, look, I can't do it. I'm going to get my head cut off, and I'm going to have somebody running hard on my right. And some are saying it's not just political fear. And I think we saw some of that in the news, for example, when Joni Ernst was making waves about voting against Pete Hegseth's nomination, which is senator, and there were actually public reports of her being threatened, physically threatened. So we know some of the far-right groups are at it as well. And so what we've got to do is find ways between now and whatever we can get done in November of this next cycle in 26 to actually take back Congress, of being able to identify those who are willing to stand up. And so I'm working quietly, and so far, for example, a wonderful colleague by the name of Jeff Hurd in Colorado just got elected like I did, and he decided he'd stand up on this tariff issue, right? And, Republicans have been real quiet about it, but he and another Republican agreed to sponsor legislation to bring tariffs back to Congress, which, after all, Article 1 entrusts us with. And I co-sponsored right away. I was happy to support it. And the hope is that although fear can spread like a contagion, so can courage, right? As Kamala Harris said. We want to see how we can support those who can show just a little bit of courage, because maybe the next representative will show a little more. This is all quiet stuff. I know it doesn't really show. We're not seeing results yet. I got nothing to report. But I know we have to do this work, because there's no alternative other than obviously doing everything we can in the streets, in the courts, and everywhere else to fight. While we're fighting, we need some members of Congress to stand up. So I'm going to keep pushing.
Over here.
Yes, right here. Right here.
Over here, here.
Stephen Michelizzi. I'm a disabled Marine vet.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you. First time coming to any kind of town hall meeting. So my question is, with Trump making staffing and budget cuts to the VA, potentially putting millions of veterans at risk, what is your plan of action to help veterans in restoring proper funding and staffing to the VA? And I bring that up because in the past, the government has been very negligent in maintaining stuff for the VA and for veterans. Take, for example, down in LA, the National Home for Disabled and Volunteer Soldiers. That land was over 300 acres that was deeded with deed restrictions to the VA, being part of the federal government, and they've mismanaged it, selling off plots of land for retail stores, apartments for UCLA, and stuff like that, where nothing has been used for veterans. Yeah. So what is your plan to restore staffing and budgets for the VA to help the veterans?
It's a great and timely question, so thank you for that. Look, the VA has been hammered by cuts and reductions in force, but I think the bigger shoe to drop is going to be this next move toward privatization. That is absolutely coming. It is going to be terrible for the level of service that veterans deserve and have demanded, and we should keep faith with our veterans always. But, you know, we've recently made some progress. We passed a bipartisan PACT Act to finally allow veterans who were exposed to toxic pits in these Middle East wars to get the care that they deserve. It's pretty expensive, but we did the right thing, and now that's all being unraveled and undone by Trump and DOJ, and the Republican Congress is just silent about it. So these cuts are happening. They are crippling the VA with these layoffs and these cuts, and the next step is going to be a move to privatization. How do I know that? Because they've been trying it for years. I'm in my 13th year, and I have just seen privatization scheme one after another, and it's right there in Project 2025, which is very much the blueprint. Now, they denied it last year when we started calling America's attention to this dystopic authoritarian takeover plan. They realized people hate this idea of monetizing every part of our federal government that these oligarchs can and just squeezing it for money and not worrying about how it impacts the people. It became so unpopular that Donald Trump had to falsely claim that he knows nothing about it, that it's not his agenda. And my Republican colleagues, we asked them about it in hearing after hearing. Oh, we don't know anything about it. That's not us. And yet we are seeing right now in all of these bills that are moving forward, things that are taken right out of Project 2025. Privatization of the VA is one of them. And we got to just push back and fight it as hard as we can.
Yeah, and thank you, by the way, for your service. Just to put some statistical framework around the challenge. We had 66,000 vacancies, VAs throughout the country last year. President Trump announced, or his administration announced 83,000 terminations, right, firing. This is already an agency that was not meeting the needs of our veterans, as you know, because the wait times are too long. I mean, hardworking people. I have a good friend who's a VA doctor up in Oregon, busting his rear end. They don't have enough staff. They don't have enough resources. So this is, I think we can all agree, this is a fundamental violation of our sacred commitment to veterans who sacrificed for us. One thing I think we need to do, among others, is to create legal mechanisms that prevent the next DOJ from getting in and violating congressional appropriation laws and deciding unilaterally that they're going to be able to simply cut and slash and eliminate where Congress has said, thou shalt spend. Now, Article 1 says that's up to Congress, right? That's the power of the purse. And we had a 1974 law that was supposed to empower a congressional official called the comptroller to bring an injunction in court anytime this is happening. Well, guess what? The comptroller, of course, is controlled by the majority, which is Republican, so they're not doing anything. So this week, a few of us are going to introduce a bill that will give a private right of action to every individual who is harmed by the next presidential executive authority that decides they know better than to follow the law. And so if they're not going to follow appropriations laws, what they're going to do what's called impounding resources and harming Americans. Americans will have a right to sue, and we're going to lift the shield of personal liability for those individual members. So if Elon Musk has got a few billion to spend, he's going to spend it defending these lawsuits by waiving their immunity. So we are learning clearly what the path of authoritarianism is. We've got to set protections in place when we get in the position in 2026, like these kinds of ideas, to ensure this doesn't happen again.
Hi, Sam.
My name is Amy. I was curious as to what you plan on doing to, in the future, bring us back towards a country where we have public housing, where we have public health care, where we have all of these things that were here when, like Trump says, when America was great again. But why can't we have all those things without the racism, without the ableism, without the bigotry? Why is it that you can represent the home of segregation in the West Coast, because Palo Alto is where segregation in California started? What are you doing to undo those problematic laws like Prop 13, like the public housing bans, the rent control bans? On a federal level, what are you doing to stop landowners and landlords from being able to control where and how people live their lives? Because Bay Area mayors have done nothing but criminalize the homeless rather than house them.
Very much appreciate the sentiment, which is we all need to do much more and much better, particularly on housing, to make sure this is a country for all of us. And I think we all see the skyrocketing homelessness rates, not just here in California, by the way. There are 44 cities in the United States that have at least 1,000 unhoused residents. Right? Most of those are outside California. So this is a national crisis. This isn't just us. And certainly in the Bay Area, we've got our own unique variety of this crisis because of the very high costs. What is the reality about how the federal law can engage and how we can engage is, since 1926, a Supreme Court decision called Euclid said essentially land use decisions are up to local governments. And the federal government cannot Bigfoot and decide this is how you're going to use your land in this city or that city, and this is how you're going to build. Now, what we can do is we can start to attach conditions to federal funding. And so if a local community wants federal funding, then we can attach conditions that will require, for example, affordability. And so ideas I'm working on right now and trying to see if I can get some folks. I'm sorry, you say Dred Scott? Would you like to share? No, I'm not defending Dred Scott, and I'm not defending Euclid either. But unlike folks on the other side of the aisle, I actually believe the Supreme Court decides what the Constitution holds. And so I need to work within that constitutional framework. And so just the last thing I'd say is, so I'm working on ideas, for example, around, we've got a lot of office vacancy and retail vacancy throughout the country, right? And we could turn a lot of that built space into housing. And the way that we could do it is with, for example, using tax credit or low interest loans to incentivize builders to take the land or take the buildings and rehabilitate them for housing. We're seeing this done particularly with hotels. It doesn't work for a lot of builders because it's still too costly. And so the idea is if we had a federal program, provide, for example, 0% loans or tax credit of some kind to rehabilitate these older buildings, particularly if they're office buildings, typically if they're built before 1970, you need small floor plates to make this work. Then you could also require that a certain number of those units, for example, 20% would be affordable. And you could require that local communities, if they want the money, would have to be able to say, well, okay, we're going to allow this to happen by right. That is in our downtown area. We're going to allow this to happen by right. We're going to use this money. So that means you can't have those kinds of exclusionary policies that prevent folks from having housing. So that would be the kind of thing we can do at the federal level, and that's what I'm working on in my short tenure.
Just very quickly, I'll add that I think we all agree that we've got a cost of housing problem, an availability of housing problem, a homelessness problem. These are all very related. The tools that I have to work with in my district kind of start with things like Section 8 vouchers. Because you're right, we don't build large public housing the way we used to, and I would support getting back to doing some of that. But we're going to have to change policy, change law to make that happen. But we need way more Section 8 landlords and Section 8 vouchers, and this administration's going the other way. They are slashing HUD's budget. So that's one of the big fights that we have just to hang on to the tools we have. We have VASH vouchers for veterans, for their housing. Not nearly enough, but in my district, I was able to steer some community project money to a project in Marin County that will end veteran homelessness in one county. We need those kind of projects all over America. So those are the tools, and of course, we need to make home ownership affordable and available to Americans. That means you may need some federally backed mortgage programs, and right now we have an administration that sort of looks at everything in our federal government and asks, can I spin that off and privatize that and help one of my oligarch friends make money? And that's what they're doing with these inadequate tools that we currently have to help make home ownership more affordable. So all of this is super important in the fight that we are fighting right now. It is fundamental rights, it's democracy, but it comes down to a very granular level in our communities for things like housing, like clean air and water, and so many other values.
Okay, over here.
Hi, I'm Renee Dwyer, and I'm going to call you Sam because we sat across from each other and had a barbecue at Lone Hill Park during your first mayoral campaign.
You can call me Sam even if you didn't, but...
So we have a ton of questions of all means and majors, and this week, my concern, I heard Trump was interviewed, and the reporter asked him if he needed to follow the Constitution, and he wasn't sure. I'm concerned about his mental stability and what can we do, all of us, or Congress do to, like, I don't know, do something about it. Most of our presidents have shared their academic records, their tax records, their health records. This guy's hiding everything. And that, it's only been a little over 100 days and you swore to uphold the Constitution and now you don't know? That's my concern.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I need to say anything about that interview. Obviously, it's atrocious and beneath the office of the presidency and violative of everything we all believe in. Without getting in the 25th Amendment, because frankly, I don't see anybody actually having the courage in his administration to follow through on the 25th Amendment. I think the reality is we get the government we vote for. And America voted for a dumpster fire in 2024, and that's what we got. And the way we can change that is by ensuring never again, right? That we make sure we support folks here locally who can stand up, get a Congress that can stand up, and obviously a new president. Do you have any good insights on this one?
I will just remind everyone of a couple of little civics lessons that you all already know. I talked a lot about Article 1. Article 2 is the presidency, the executive branch. And the principal authority that is vested in a president is to take care to faithfully execute the laws that Congress enacts. Right? That's like the big part of the job. The only other piece is to be our commander-in-chief in times of war that Congress declares. You get a theme here? There's nothing about being a dictator. It's just the opposite. So that's the way it's supposed to work. And we also have a judicial branch that gets to interpret what the Constitution and the laws mean. And a president obviously has to honor that, because the oath that the president takes is to defend the United States Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that Constitution spells out his job. All right, there's the civics of it. Now let me just ask you a basic question. Should a president have to follow the Constitution? Yes. Thank you.
Over here, Sam. So firstly, I wanted to thank both of you for being here, for the work that you're doing. The Meme Act, I think was a great move. All the letters you all have written, and the speeches you've given, and all the words you're saying today are fantastic. But I got to say, underlying the question I just heard, and underlying all of us, the things that sort of wakes us up, in the middle of the night, is the fact that it seems that we really are living in an existential threat, not just to our country, not only to our democracy, not only to our district, not only to our planet, right? But the very nature of who we are as humans. And yet we're hearing from you like these friendly chatters and going to the gym. And when does it become time to simply not let business as usual happen? When does it become time to do what the Korean legislators did, jump fences and break tables? It seems to us that it's, I'm sorry if this is a naive question, but this is what makes us wake up at night and saying, are you guys really doing it? Because let's be honest also about Citizens United. Yeah. Yes, Republicans are the major corrupt party right now, but Democrats take plenty of money from plenty of billionaires.
Sure. So let me just ask you, sir, what specifically do you suggest?
No more business as usual.
Right, but what does that mean affirmatively? I know you don't want to do anything that we're doing, so what specifically would you like us to do?
Applaud what you are doing, and I think that needs to be done. But I want the government, I don't know, when the Republicans are in the minority, they seem to jam up the gears of governance a lot better than our side does.
Can I throw a couple of thoughts in here? First of all, Republicans were great at obstructing when we had all three branches of government for the first 2 years of the Biden presidency. But they weren't that good because we did historic, transformative things that I'm incredibly proud of. Finally tackling infrastructure, passing the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act on a bipartisan basis, and there was a lot more than that. So let's not give the Republicans too much credit. I mean, on many days, they're just fighting with each other like ferrets in a phone booth. But in terms of I think the spirit of your question, which is, are we fighting for you and for the American people? I spend a lot of my time in the town halls that I do explaining to my constituents everything that I'm doing and inviting them to suggest something more that I should be doing. Now, I'm not ready to break chairs and jump fences or anything like that. And in fact, that's the last thing I'll say on this is I want to caution all of us. I'm urging people to take to the streets, to be part of these protests and these rallies, to be part of a huge civic awakening. But with this president, we got to be smart and disciplined about how we do it. Because all of the terrible things that he is doing, dusting off laws from the 1790s and disappearing people, all of the trade chaos that he's doing, so much of what he's doing to create adversarial relations with other nations is in the name of fake emergency declarations that he has invoked. And it's right in Project 2025, and so I am pretty tuned into this. They are going to look for every excuse they can find to declare a civil disobedience emergency of some kind, something where they've got to bring in the military, where they've got to use the police power, maybe invoking the Insurrection Act, maybe suspending habeas corpus and due process to put down what they will mischaracterize as democratic, violence. So we just got to be smart about it. That's how totalitarians seize power. You remember the Reichstag fire in 1930s Germany? We cannot allow the activism and the fighting that we do to feed into that. We got to be smart and we got to be peaceful in every way.
Okay, over here. Over here.
Hi, my name is Susanna, and I'm from Roseville. I don't want to cry. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I'm afraid. Okay? I'm afraid for my country because I love this country. My father fought in World War II, and I've always been so proud when I look at the flag. But I'm afraid. I've said things in this last 100 days that I've never in my life thought I would say. I'm afraid to go get on an airplane to fly to Georgia to visit my sister. I don't want to go to an airport. I do not want my family to have to feel afraid. I don't want my son that looks like me who goes, to work. I don't want to have to worry about him, not because of anything gang related or anything, but just, I don't want these lovely police officers that are here watching us to stop him and be on the other side, as one would say. I don't want to be afraid for my oldest son who is on the spectrum to, if you could see how anxious he is hearing about this registry and habeas corpus and all this stuff, we are afraid. And yet we still come here and we go to protests and we put our faces out there and we do everything we can. And I need you guys to be courageous and do everything that you can to stop this and to tell us what we need to do to help you, because we are willing to do it. We are. You need to tell us what we need to do.
Thank you. I think you, obviously, an awful lot of folks here and throughout the country are feeling exactly what you're feeling. So thank you for saying it out loud. You're not the only one who's afraid. There's a lot of fear here, and there are times I feel fear too. Martin Luther King said, it's in the darkest of nights that we can most clearly see the stars. This is a very dark moment in our country. Very dark moment. But we are seeing those stars in our own communities. We're standing up. And folks who are standing up in a lot of ways. In my own community, folks who are being very clear and telling ICE agents, we're not going to be cooperating with you. In all of our local communities, as I said before, the nonprofits are trying to support those who are suffering because of all these cuts and horrible decisions that are being made. But this is an opportunity for all of us as Americans to come together. I love the fact that so many people stood up and applauded. That says a lot about the character of Roseville, right? So it says a lot about the character of this community. We all need to stand up for each other. The way we're going to do it together, and you happen to live in a district where you can have a pretty direct impact, right? We know we got to fight like heck, and we're going to continue to work with a lot of organizations like Democracy Forward and Public Citizen and others to fight in the courts. As I mentioned, 135 injunctions. It's incredible. No president's ever seen that. And we're going to do everything we can in Congress to support them with amicus briefs and give them information and help them with strategy and find resources and continue to support all those civic organizations that are out there. And we're going to be out there in the streets marching too, as we have been. But as we're doing this and as we're fighting, the fundamental way we change government in America has to be through the ballot box. And that's something that you uniquely have. And you've got organizations that help to put this on. Do everything you can to band together. Look, we're going to have a lot of differences after we take power about how far to push one way or another on housing or any other issue. But now's when we got to be united. Now's when we all got to be in together and saying we recognize there's one thing that we feel far too strongly about, to start to pick fights over specifics and nitty-gritty. Right now, we're facing an authoritarian regime, and as Americans, it violates everything we believe in. So I think this is the opportunity for us to shine through this dark night and support the leadership that you're already seeing, and you see an opportunity to also offer that leadership in your community, please do so. 2026 is not so far off, although it seems like the last 120 days have been a century. Believe me, it's going to come really fast. We've got to organize. I know for a fact that I've got colleagues who are in these tough districts that, you know, could be red or blue, depending on how just a few hundred people vote. And I can tell you we're mobilizing, knocking on doors in just this month. They're doing it now.
Yeah, Sam is exactly right. And I want to thank you. That was just a beautiful and powerful statement of something that millions of Americans are feeling today. So look, a couple things. We know that fear is a very natural thing. We all feel it from time to time. Fear can motivate you or fear can paralyze you. And authoritarians count on fear that paralyzes. We cannot allow that to happen. And so the way that we have to turn those very natural feelings into action is we got to have each other's back. We got to come together and be united. And I just think this is a moment where at the community level, you and your son, I mean, you mentioned fears that are deeply personal, and they resonate with me because I've got an autistic son too. And the idea of RFK Jr., who is just a conspiracy theorist and a hack, creating a registry for people with developmental disabilities, that's insane. That should scare all of us. So that's just a non-starter. But we've got to have each other's back at the community level, at the state and national level, and it is that unity. You know, I'm a progressive Democrat, okay? But I don't think this is a progressive moment. I think it's an American moment. And that's why I got colleagues like my progressive pal Jamie Raskin, who has become very close friends and allies with rock-ribbed Republicans like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Because we together are Team America. That's what this moment is, and we got to have your back and everyone else's back.
Congressman, last question.
Me? Oh, hey, my name is Mary Ann, and thank you guys for being here. I'm a retired respiratory therapist, and it took us 20 years to get legislation passed for pulmonary rehab and cardiac rehab, and I helped do that going back and forth to Washington, D.C. But what I want to say to you guys is you need to let your Republican colleagues know that, one, they are working for us, two, that Social Security and Medicare was earned by all of us. It's not an entitlement. We need to get rid of that word entitlement because it makes people think that we're just here for a handout when every one of us in this room that have worked since we were, 13, 14, 15 years old, we all paid into those systems. We earned that. That is there for us for our retirement. And Mr. Trump, you have to realize that there are some people that only get Social Security. You can't take their Social Security from them.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got a lot of fear right now in this country about what may happen to Social Security and Medicaid in particular, and very justified based on what we just saw in March, which was a vote, including your representative, of Republicans to support $880 billion in cuts to health care programs in this country. And you said, we've got to tell our Republican colleagues that they work for you. You know what? I know you can tell them pretty well, and they'll listen to you a lot more than they'll listen to me. So the first thing I'd say is, you guys are doing it now. Thank you. Continue to do it, right? Because you've got to let them know that they work for you. And I will continue to do everything I can as an ally to push with you. Let me just briefly talk about those two programs, Social Security and Medicaid, which seem to be of great concern. 7,000 people are slated, 7,000 employees of Social Security Administration are slated to be terminated, or dosed, or whatever you want to call it. And this is a program, we know 173,000 people in our district here in District 3, right? From Roseville up to Lake Tahoe down to Death Valley, 170,000 people depend on Social Security. This is a program, the largest in the federal government, $1.5 trillion, that is critical, we know, for the survival of millions and millions of Americans, and they deliver those checks and all the services related to Social Security with less than 1% of the administration cost. So if you think that you're going to save money by firing the people who are getting checks in the hands of Americans, think again, because that's a very, very small percentage of the budget. And what we all know is that's just going to disrupt service provision, right? If any of you have tried to call Social Security office lately, you'll probably understand why you've got a long wait. And we saw in 10 days, 4 times the computer system went down across the country. And initially, the administration actually proposed requiring, you can believe this, requiring seniors and those with disabilities to have to show up in person if they want to change their registration for benefits. So which is crazy, right? I mean, folks who have limited access to transportation. So we are going to fight hard for Social Security. We're also going to fight hard for Medicaid. But let me tell you what they're going to tell you, the Republicans, because you're already hearing it, I know from your representative, hearing all kinds of interesting, creative ideas about how they're going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, right? I think it's one recent town hall, he said that there was $50 billion that the GAO found in waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. Look, of course there's waste, fraud, and abuse in every federal program. We know that. And that's why you have inspector generals whose job it is to identify that waste, fraud, and abuse, and then either bring lawsuits or get people fired or bring criminal prosecutions, whatever it is. And guess what? The administration fired 17 inspector generals as soon as they got into office. So you can't find the waste, fraud, and abuse this way. And the GAO report that Mr. Kiley referred to, in fact, did not say there was $50 billion of waste. It said there was $50 billion potentially of claims for which there may not be complete documentation, 80% of which were just documentation problems. And Lord knows we've all had insurance companies tell us we don't have enough documentation for whatever we're claiming. So we gotta not accept the BS excuses that Republicans are going to give for simply cutting what we all deserve as Americans, what we're entitled to. And basic health care and Social Security is what we're all entitled to. So yes, we're going to fight like hell, and we need you to fight as well, just as you're doing and you've been doing. Thank you for being out in the streets. Thank you to Indivisible. Thank you to the Democratic Party. Thanks to everybody who's been working so hard here. We need you to continue to voice your objections, because they're going to come up with these ridiculous lines about why it is they're cutting, and you know better. And we're happy to provide you all the information we got to support you. And thank you for your advocacy for health care. Okay.
Thank you, Sam. Is this our last question? Okay, we're about to wrap up, and I think this is a really good question to begin to do that on, because Social Security and Medicaid, those are profoundly important programs that affect millions and millions, almost every American at some point. And you ought to be able to have a conversation face-to-face with your representative in Congress to ask some hard questions about that right now. Because let me tell you, folks, you're being lied to. All right? When the president says that he will love and cherish Social Security and Medicaid, it's a lot like him telling those construction companies, you know, if you build this development for me, I'll pay your bills. There is some sinister stuff underway, because as he's saying that, Elon Musk is gutting the Social Security Administration. Sam talked about some of the office closures, these on-again, off-again policies where seniors don't know what to do. Some of you, thankfully, because of Democrats, recently got this wonderful windfall elimination penalty removed, and your Social Security benefits went way up because you spent part of your life as a teacher or a policeman or a firefighter or something like that. Terrible policy, been working on the fix as long as I've been in Congress. We finally did it under President Joe Biden. But This year, you started to get the first Social Security checks that reflect that enhanced benefit, and Social Security sometimes screws up. And if and when they do, good luck getting someone on the phone when they're firing all these folks and closing offices, and that's the plan. They're going to make Social Security a dysfunctional agency, and then they're going to come in with the other shoe dropping and say we got to privatize it. Mark my words. And you ought to be able to ask your member of Congress and look them in the eye and make sure that they are committed to fighting against that, because it's absolutely coming. Project 2025, folks. The other one on Medicaid that everyone needs to understand is whether you are one of the 35% of Americans that get your primary health insurance from Medicaid or not, our entire healthcare system hangs together. It depends, each of the elements depend on each other. Medicaid is the only thing that anyone with disabilities has. 100% of Americans with disabilities depend on Medicaid. Our nursing home care system is overwhelmingly Medicaid. I represent a bunch of Indian health clinics. I represent a lot of tribes. In many cases, they serve Medicaid patients even more than the enrolled tribal members that they serve. And there are entire communities for which that Indian health clinic that depends overwhelmingly on Medicaid, that's all they have. They would have to drive for hours to get health care. The same with veterans. They don't get all their care at the VA. Not everyone can get in a van and go to Fort Miley. Some of them, using the Veteran Choice Act, get care locally through other providers. And when the whole system begins to unravel, especially rural hospitals and rural health clinics, because these Republicans cut Medicaid, which they're gonna do, I promise you, they're in the course of doing it right now, the whole system falls apart. And that means all of you, some of you under Affordable Care Act policies could see your policies go up 300% if they cut Medicaid the way I think they're going to. First responders are going to be stretched. Veterans are going to have a hard time getting care outside of the limited availability at places like Fort Miley and their local clinics. So all of us have a stake in this fight. All of us deserve to ask our representative in Congress, look him in the eye, do you oppose this? Who are you for? Who are you against? Where do you stand? I'm sorry you don't have the ability to do that here. I hope maybe we're creating some public pressure that can change that, because you deserve a town hall and a serious, substantive conversation just like we've tried to give you here today. It's been an honor to be part of that. Thanks for having us.
Thank you all. Thank you for taking the time. Very grateful. Democracy is alive and well here in Placer County. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Can we thank our Congress members here, Congressman Sam Liccardo and Congressman Jared Huffman, for their time today. We're most appreciative. And I'd also like to thank their staff who worked with us tirelessly to put this event on. Before you go, I hope you are asking yourself, what can I do now? And what you can do is sign up for our next event, which is Democracy 2025. It is Project 2026, the Democratic Blueprint for a Just Society. And we would love to have you be part of our event.